Hey there, Per Plant Girl here. I am now 8 weeks before my average last frost date, and I'm starting my tomatoes. So tomatoes can be started anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks before your average last frost date. And of course, we're starting them indoors, so they're ready to plant out once we're past all risk of frost. I live in Saskatchewan, Canada. We have a short growing season, so I like to go to the furthest date on that and start around 8 weeks. So I have just set up some small pots here. They're, I don't know, about 4 inches tall and probably about 2.5 inches across in either direction on the top. And that's what I'm going to be starting my tomatoes in. So I'll just run through the varieties really quickly for you of what I'm going to be planting, and then the planting will basically be the same. Well, it will be the same for all of them. So I have Radiator Charlie's Mortgage Lifter. It's a great tomato, beautiful pinkish large fruit on it. It's a staking tomato, so vining tomato. And that's a good thing to know, is if you're growing a staking tomato that's going to need a lot of support going up tall and produce from the bottom up, or a bush tomato that's going to be, it'll need a good sturdy cage or support system, and it'll kind of set a lot of fruit all over the whole plant at once, and you can basically harvest it all at once. In my short season here, it's kind of through the whole summer, but if you have a longer season, you'll find it has a large flush of fruit and then it's done if it's a bush or determinate tomato. The staking tomatoes you might also find being called indeterminate, because they'll just keep growing up and up and up and up and up like a big vine until until frost gets them or you cut them off. So I have my Radiator Charlie's Mortgage Lifter, Japanese Trifeli, it's just a black tomato. So this is a little bit more oblong or almost pear-shaped tomato with dark shoulders and a red main body. Then I'm trying for the first time a paste tomato called Mamma Mia. And these are all staking tomatoes unless I say otherwise. The Mamma Mia is supposed to be only 70 days, which isn't too bad for a tomato. I like to grow as shorter season tomatoes if I can. I don't know if I have the amounts on the other two. I don't. Then I have Black Crim. This is one of my very favorite tomatoes. So this is a rounder black tomato with, again, the dark shoulders. It's almost like a purpley blackness on the shoulder of the tomato, and then a nice deep red fruit. So this is 80 day till maturity, and that's from planting out generally. Amish Paste. So that's just a nice kind of oblong, it's usually a really good size paste tomato, and I find they usually produce quite well. 83 days, a couple packs of those. And then one of my very, very favorite tomatoes that I've been growing possibly as long as I've been growing tomatoes is the Manitoba tomato. And this is a bush type tomato. The tomatoes are a little bit smaller than a lot of those other staking tomatoes. So instead of like a big tomato that's big and meaty like this, it's a little bit smaller, like fist size or smaller. But really nice flavored tomatoes that you can use in a variety of ways. You can use it as a slicer. You can put it into smaller pieces and make it like tomato, a salad or something. And it also works great in sauces and that. It's not too seedy or juicy, but it does have some of that. And it just has what I prefer for a nice texture and acidity. So again, a couple packs because I'm almost out. And these are only 60-day tomatoes, so they work really well in my climate. Then I have Thornburn's Terracotta tomato. This was recommended to me last year, the year before. Beautiful tomato. It has like almost a golden orangey color to the tomato skin. I'm trying to remember what shape. I think it's a rounder tomato, but don't quote me on that. It was a good sized tomato, and I thought this was a really good one. So this is going to be a new keeper in the rotation of tomatoes. Another paste tomato is the Roma. And then I have a couple of like cherry or smaller type, like kind of what I think of as like little snacking tomatoes. And I have Cheeseman's, very tiny little tomato, and Sun Gold, which is a very, very sweet little tomato. So lots of times people want to know where I get my seed from. So I have seed from Heritage Harvest Seed, seed from Bessie's Seed, I have Mackenzie seed and TNT seeds. So really, wherever I can find tomato seed, I guess that's where I get my tomato seed from. So tomatoes don't need anything really special for planting them. So you're just going to make about a 1/4 inch little divot in the soil. Now I've chosen these pots and I'm going to be planting a couple of seeds in 2 opposite corners. You could just put a couple of seeds right in the center, but I'll grow them out, let them germinate. I'll pick 1 plant for each corner and eventually I'll separate it out into larger containers, but this just takes up less space while I'm getting them going and germinated. Just takes less space while I'm getting them ready. So I'm just going to get the tomatoes, put a little divot in each of these pots, and then I'll put the seeds in. And I've pre-moistened this soil. I actually just filled the pots and then I've watered them, put water in the tray and let them sit for a bit to soak that water up. Most of these should be nice and moist. I can see a couple are still dry on top, so I'll just give them a good spray on top to get the soil moist at the top, because that's really where we need the moisture. And sometimes this is just peat moss, perlite, and vermiculite. And sometimes if the peat moss is really dry, it just has trouble initially absorbing the moisture. So sometimes you just need to kind of give it a little moisture where it has to soak through and down. And that'll be enough to give it that initial moistening to let it start soaking the water up from the bottom. You could just use pre-moistened soil and fill your pots with that. This is just how I did it today. But you do want to make sure that you have moisture up at the seed level when you're first starting seeds. That's the most important part. I just have 1 container, 1 pot for each of the Sun Gold and Cheese Mounds. And here's the seeds. You can see those tiny little seeds there. So I'm just going to take 2 seeds in each hole, and then I'll just gently push some soil over so they're not in an air pocket and they're covered. So same thing, 2 seeds, 2 seeds, and then I'll just come in, push the soil over that little divot I made. So that's the first 2 pots sown. So I'm just going to keep going through and doing the exact same thing through all of the rest. Now, I often get asked why I put 2 seeds in each hole if I'm just going to cut one out or eliminate it. And it's just insurance. If you are short on seed, or you know you have really fresh seed or good viability, or the seed was really expensive, just put 1 seed. And then you can just have that 1 plant and just be ready to reseed if you need to for some reason. I am going to put just a little bit of vermiculite on top. Now this will just help to hold moisture at that seed level, which, as I said before, is important to have moisture at the seed level, because the moisture is what indicates to the seeds that it's time to start germinating and growing. And it also just helps to make sure that you don't have too much moisture at the top. It'll absorb a little bit extra, I mean, only to a point, of course. And if the soil dries out a little tiny bit, it can release some of that moisture back into the soil. So it can kind of help you out a little bit there. So I think some of the holes on this got a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, but that should be okay. With tomato seeds, they're strong, pretty strong seedlings, so they should still just pop out and be all right. Make sure my packages are out of the way, and I'm just gonna spray these on top just to make sure the vermiculite has that moisture and there's good moisture at the top, and it also helps to settle those seeds down in their holes. And there's no air pockets around the seed. Air pockets can cause the seed root to die off before it gets a good chance there. So you want to make sure that it's well settled in the soil. So the vermiculite isn't something that you need to have. It's just one of those like to have kind of things. So now, like I said, I watered these from the bottom to get them started. So there's water sitting in the bottom of this tray, and I don't want my tomato seedlings just sitting with too much water around the bottom. It's not necessary, and it just can cause more fungal issues and problems than benefits for keeping the soil moist, especially at this stage when you're just trying to get germination. So I'm just moving them out of that tray. It's just the easiest way to get the water off a tray like this, is just put them in a dry tray, and then I can lift this one to dump it out. Or I can set trays that need watering in here to soak up that extra water and then take them out later. So there they are, all in a nice dry tray. I think this humidity dome will fit them the best with these little bit taller pots. So just set them on my large heat mat here, and I have a temperature minder here that's set with a probe I've stuck down in the tray of tomatoes, and that'll just make sure that the heat mat comes on and turns off again at the right temperatures to make sure that the soil stays around that 24 to 26 degrees Celsius mark. And I should see tomato germination from anywhere from a few days to 10 days. Sometimes some tomatoes are really quick to come up and others take a little bit longer. So you just keep an eye on them. And once I have about 80% germination in here, I can just take the humidity dome off. It's important that you take the humidity dome off once your plants are germinated so you don't get too much humidity and fungal issues going on, as well as once the plants are germinated enough, I will remove them from the heat so that they don't start stretching from that too much bottom heat. That's all there is to starting tomatoes indoors. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.